Hey there. I am so excited about doing something super special for my wife on Valentine's Day. And I got to tell you, this hotel, the perfect place to do it.
Well, we're happy to help, but there's one thing we won't be able to do to make sure she's happy tonight.
What's that?
Get her a better-looking husband?
Do you live, eat, and sleep the hotel industry? Looking to brush up on your game? You've come to the right place. Welcome to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the No Vacancy podcast with me, Glenn Hausman. Man, I'm excited to have you guys here today. 2018 is off to a great start, and I cannot believe we are already deep into February, which is great. Shortest month of the year. It means we're going to get closer to March, get that springtime vibe coming, which I really desperately need because I am sick and tired of being cold and crabby, and I'd like a whole new sort of things to talk about. If you haven't subscribed to our weekly newsletter, be sure you do that. Text the word hotel to 66866. That's right. You got that phone in your hand. You're looking at it over 100 times every single day. Take the time, type in 66866, then the word hotel, and you'll get our weekly newsletter. And be sure to check out novacancynews.com and let me know what you think. Lots of great videos on that site, lots of back podcasts, all sorts of fun things. And of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that this show is brought to you in part by Duetto, the revenue strategy technology platform that thousands of hotels are using around the country. You know, I'm trying to get these guys some more business from listening, but everyone I talk to already is using Duetto, and if you're not, I'm curious as to why you're not. If you want to learn all about revenue management, check out my recent interview. Check our back catalog with their CEO, Patrick Bosworth. We're going to tell you about the history of revenue management, why revenue management is so important, and how Duetto can actually help you. Check them out at getrevenueresults.com. And also check out our show at potable.com, a fun new way to discover podcasts. I love it. Woo! This is getting exhausting. I got one more plug to do, but before we do that, I'd like to bring in producer Jeff Polly. Jeff, you got to be tired hearing me do all these plugs at the beginning of the show.
Hey, how's it going? You know how I know you're getting older, Glenn?
The gray hair, the expanding waistline.
You're starting off almost every podcast with "Oh, I can't believe how fast the year's flying by." Ah, blah, blah. You know, you sound like the old curmudgeon guy. When time flies.
All right. Well, then we should add in the sound effects of me sitting down or standing up. That'll just show how old I am.
I'm getting old too, but I'm working the opposite. I can't believe that it's 9:35. It feels like it's 4 p.m.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm jealous. I don't even know what to say to that. I will say this, though. Be sure to check out Jeff and I. We're going to be at AHOACon 2018 at the Gaylord National outside D.C. That's March 27th through 30th. We will not be bringing dogs with us to this event, but it will be a great event at all. We actually got ourselves this awesome podcast booth. If you were at AHOA last year, you saw it. Clear plexiglass room. We're going to be doing some Facebook Live stuff there. We're going to be recording great interviews out there, especially capturing the stories and advice from among thousands of those living the American dream every day. You know who I'm talking about, the AHOA people. Jeff, you excited about that event?
I'm super excited. And, maybe we should change that up a little bit. I bet you if we brought my 2 new puppies, we'd get a lot more attention. And speaking of my puppies, I think they want to be introduced on the podcast. They're saying hello, and since they're brand new and this is the first time that they've been on the show, they're super excited.
They really are almost excited as I am to be to doing this show. But we'd like to have dogs. You're actually not the first guest to have dogs bark on the show. That goes to Tim Dressen of the 500 by Midnight podcast, whose dog was barking on the bonus show we did just last week, which was a lot of fun. All right, here we go. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. Let's get this show on the road. We got Valentine's Day coming up, Jeff, and my favorite holiday. I love this holiday more than any other holiday of the year. Wow. Wait, I don't. I actually think it's the dumbest holiday of the year, and I can't stand it. Not as a guy, not because I'm afraid to get my beautiful bride flowers or chocolates, just because I'm not really in big favor of holidays that were created by greeting card companies in order to just sell things.
Come on, Glenn. It's a holiday that expresses love and attention to your loved ones. I mean, no, you're absolutely right. I think it's just a horrible holiday, and sometimes you just gotta kind of roll with it, and appease the societal norms, especially to your loved one, and make her feel special for that day, even though we do it. A lot of us do it curmudgeonly.
Now, I'm excited because I'm getting a free pass this year because I'll be doing a terrific speaking engagement next week for Coast Hotels up in Victoria, British Columbia. Coast Hotels is a great, fun company. You got to love a company that hires me to come in and speak at their event. Hey, and if you want me to speak at your event, check me out at Traveling Glenn on Twitter, on Instagram, or drop me a line, glenn@rouse.media. But for all you hoteliers out there, I'm excited for you because Valentine's Day should be a very successful holiday. It should make you more money, and it should bring lots of people through those doors. And we want to help you understand what's going out there in the world for Valentine's Day, because even though Jeff and I rue this holiday, we know that you guys absolutely love it. Isn't that right, Jeff?
Yeah, and I'm hoping that I can help everyone out that is, either loves it and still thinking of something to do, or you may be like me and hate it, and you're like, oh my God, Valentine's Day's 5 days away. I got to do something. So we came up with a little bit of a list of really cool hotel packages that might help you out in your 5 days of preparation.
Okay, now we totally understand that you don't have much time in order to put these types of packages together now, but save this podcast, bookmark it, listen to it next fall, and then you'll be able to plan the perfect Valentine's Day for 2019.
Sorry, Glenn. I'm expecting every one of our listeners to listen to this immediately when we post it, and at least buy 10 of these packages before this Valentine's Day.
Okay, it's a mighty tall order. So let's talk a little bit about these packages. And I would say before we get into this, stick around because after the commercial break, I'm so excited. I have consumer advocate Christopher Elliott on the show. Love that guy. You've read his columns in USA Today. You've seen his videos. You know he's out there looking out for the consumer. And we talk about lots of great issues, including our mutual hate of resort fees. That's right, hoteliers out there. I don't like your resort fees. Nothing personal. Love you, not your fees. Okay, let's talk, Jeff.
All right. Number one, if you're in Colorado or if you want to fly into Colorado, Cheyenne Mountain Resorts in Colorado Springs has a romantic affair package. And, they do all kinds of cool things, horseback riding, blah, 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 cheese and fruit plate. One of the really cool things that they do is they set up with a local brodeer photo session and photographer and actually give you a chance to, capture the night's passion for years to come.
Oh, that sounds dirty.
I went a little seedy. We're pushing the boundaries on this one. I didn't want to do the standard, strawberries and chocolate package because I think kind of every hotel has something like that. But this list is we're going on the edge.
Woo! Well, that makes me a little nervous. I'm excited because you know me, Jeff. I'm a G-rated guy. PG movies make me blush. So I don't know if these packages are going to be something that I can handle because I'm so innocent.
Yeah, I can only imagine your innocence.
All right, so that's cool. I love it. Photos photos to capture you and your significant other that you'll be able to look at for years to come.
Yeah, honestly, I think it's super special. What hotels out there are doing stuff like that to, most hotel or resorts, you go there, you stay, you create the moment and maybe take a couple photos of yourself and then move on. But this is something that, if you do this package or something like it, you can have this with your loved one for many, many years.
Yeah. Plus you can put those photos up on social media and feel really good about yourself too, and brag to your friends that you've done it.
I think revenge porn is illegal though.
Well, we're assuming that you love your partner. Love them, not are revenging against them.
So I think we could talk about that all day long, but let's move on to hotel number 2, which is in St. Pete Beach, Florida, which I know really well because I used to live there, but awesome little place to go visit. No matter kind of where you are in the country, it's pretty easy to get to. The Hotel Zamora's Wink Wink package.
What's in there?
I couldn't actually do the wink wink on the radio because you wouldn't know what I would just say package.
Right. Not as effective, though. I do like the wink wink nudge nudge kind of a thing, though.
So apparently this is a brand new hotel, and it takes a risque turn to Valentine's Day.
Yeah, how so?
You've got the naughty and nice intimacy kit, a chocolate aphrodisiac waiting for you in your room, glow-in-the-dark dice game, sultry Valentine's Day candy, lots of lotions and oils, and a personal mini massager. So, that's, again, pushing the envelope of what we see in the norm.
Yeah, speaking about glow-in-the-dark dice games and an intimacy kit, so if you're using prophylactics, I'd like to see, I think, a glow-in-the-dark prophylactic. Then you can play a game. Now you see it, now you don't. Now you see it, now you don't. Man, I just really want that mature rating on this podcast, don't I?
There's so many jokes. I could go full on George Garland with that bit, but I'll keep it. I'm not going to say any of the 7 words.
All right, no, none of the 7 words. We're just going to use. We're just going to intimate what's happening over here. Okay. So I'd love that.
We're going back to the Southwest.
All right, Southwest, baby. Okay.
Yeah, Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is a great little town, to visit, especially in the winter. I have been there a couple times, and I don't know if people know this, but there's a little ski hill at the top of the mountain right outside of Albuquerque. So you get the best of kind of both worlds, desert, and if the weather's right, you can go up, take a sky trolley up to the top of the mountain right outside of town and go skiing for the day.
That's pretty sweet.
And Hotel Albuquerque's Sensual Romance Getaway Package is what we're featuring here. They're kind of going more norm, but it's a little bit, kind of a posh room, but chocolate-covered strawberries, the usual amenities. But the romance tilts to a new level with this sultry, seductive love kit that they provide. So maybe they have your glow-in-the-dark prophylactics there.
I like that. All right, cool. Not only that, but they're keeping it local because you get a bottle of local New Mexican wine, which I really like, as well as a discount coupon for more purchases from the company that's furnishing those love kits, which I think is pretty good. Now, one of the things that we don't really talk about here, it's interesting talking about this topic, but hotels and human sexuality seem to come together pretty often, right? So intimacy kits, if you don't have those types of things in your mini bars, and yes, you should have mini bars, go check out my good friends at Bartech. That's BARTECH.com, bartech.com. They'll supply with the mini bars. But those, I think that's an important amenity to have. I think it's going to make you money almost as much as the booze will make you too. All right. So any other great packages that caught your interest this year, Jeff Polly?
We got tons of them.
Oh, wow.
And this is one that I fully expect one of our listeners to listen to this podcast and tomorrow when we release it, and then book it, because this is going to Dominican Republic, and it's only Valentine's Day is 4 days out, 5 days out. You should be able to get a cheap flight down there. But
sure.
Next year, if you're thinking about doing something really special and really nice, and you really want to push the envelope on Valentine's Day, the Barcelo Bravaro Beach Resorts in DR is apparently just killing it on Valentine's Day it's an adults only all-inclusive property. There's yoga classes for couples. There's a sexy tequila game,
right?
All kinds of romantic-based, adult-based opportunities and amenities that I think really pique some people's interest.
How does a sexy tequila game, do you think, work, Jeff?
Isn't tequila just always sexy when you drink it?
It is. I suppose it has something to do with salt and tongues and that sort of thing as well. Yeah, right.
Dirty mind. Dirty mind.
Hey, it's Valentine's Day. We're talking getting sexy. Gotta get the D word going. That little dirtiness. But here, if you're not interested in any sexy games, I have got the perfect drinking game to play at a hospitality conference near you. My suggestion, bring that bottle of tequila with you, bring that bottle of Jack with you, and anytime the speaker says the word experience, take a shot. You're sure to be drunk by the time that session is over. My little advice for you on how to have some fun at a conference.
Before the session's over, I'd be drunk in the first 10 minutes if I played that game.
I know. I feel like, how experience is so overused. I almost feel like how the Smurfs use the word Smurf all the time in terms of all the other words. I hear experience that much. I'm not sure where I'm going with that thought, but if you guys think about that, it might help. Plus, on Valentine's Day, having that poor one lady Smurf is probably a big challenge as well.
All right. I'm heading over to the East Coast. You coming with?
Oh yeah, baby. I'm already here waiting for you out here on Strong Island.
Maybe we could do this Valentine's Day package together next year.
Now that's exciting. I like that idea. And we're already accused by a lot of people of wanting to cuddle too much. So let's just go for it.
So yeah, the Surf Comer Miami's Tristan with a twist package.
Say that 10 times fast.
Yeah, right.
Just with a twist. Yeah.
So we all know Miami's a sexy place, sexy location. Well, why not go down there yourself and check it out for yourself? And this package is a perfect way to do that with your loved one. You'll be greeted upon arrival with a sex on the beach cocktail and an intimacy kit waiting in your room. Seems like that's a common trend with the list. As you said, I think it's pretty important. And this location in Miami's got a great pool, great weather, and a great way to spend your Valentine's Day.
Yeah, certainly a lot better than spending it up here because it is freaking cold up here in the Northeast. So I like the idea of to Miami. I think I'm going to try heading there. But let's stick a little bit on the East Coast. I know as we're recording this today, the fans of the Philadelphia Eagles are pretty much trying to destroy their city for celebrating, quote unquote. So if there's something left in Philadelphia after the parade from this week, what can they expect?
So, Philadelphia, apparently the Hotel Palomar in Philadelphia has a drunken love package. And they're going to spice up their not only their intimacy kit, but you can dial in room service with a special aphrodisiac menu. Ooh. and it has an entire matched enticing cocktails or set of cocktails to get you in your room. So again, that's another a way of spicing up the guest experience, right?
And and who doesn't like what I'm going to guess are chocolates and oysters and that sort of thing. I'm waiting for you to share a package with me that has not just the intimacy kit, but comes with either that little blue pill or Sildenafil, which is now the generic version of that.
Are you talking about the blue pill from the Matrix? Because don't you want to take the red one or the blue one? I can't remember.
I don't remember either, but certainly seems a lot more fun than being trapped with you and an intimacy kit in a hotel. That much I know.
All right. Last but not least.
Okay.
Everybody thinks that Vegas is a town for you to go to with your buddies or whatnot, but there's a lot of opportunity to take your loved one to Vegas and have an incredible time. And the Mandarin Oriental in Las Vegas has a Lover's Toast package. And, I got to say, I'm not a Valentine's Day guy, but if I was going to, take my wife to somewhere for Valentine's Day, I would say Vegas, seeing a show and the food experiences. I think that would probably be a good way to go. So Mandarin Hotel in Vegas, the Mandarin Oriental, has a whole package based around spa junkies who want to be pampered. So this includes a I'm going to pronounce this wrong. Sorry. Don't hate me. A Tin Quan thermal spa experience. And wow, this is a hard one. Kiki de Mont. No, not even going to try it.
Kiki de Montparnasse. I don't know, but
you can't even do it, and you're a wordsmith. So yeah,
but I'm not a French wordsmith.
for all our listeners, go on to Mandarin Orientals if you're interested in this package. Go on their website, take a look at it, see if you can pronounce it. And if you can, I'll buy your drink the next time I see it. I can.
I love that. Mandarin Oriental is, of course, at the City Center complex by Aria. I don't even know if they're calling it City Center anymore, but I always will because they pushed that into my mind while they were constructing it over those few years. All right, I love myself some Vegas, and I think, Jeff, what we should take away from here is there are certain elements that every Valentine's Day package must have. But if you want to be sure that you can stick out, be different than your competition, get those people to come to your hotel, or even be able to make sure that you have a great experience with your lover, with your partner, whatever you want to call that individual. I call mine Jeff. But if you don't do that, think about how you could partner with other companies within your community. We saw some great ideas about having a photographer come in and take some sexy pictures of you. What are you doing to connect with, that local winery like the hotel in New Mexico? What about other local spirits that might be available? What about local chocolates and all of those things? Create some sense of excitement around your community. Give some business to those stores that are within your area as well. And I think that if you all work together, you're going to be able to create a fun, different Valentine's Day package. Now, Jeff, the one thing we didn't talk about when it comes to Valentine's Day packages, something that I think is terrific, is creating a package that's so outsized, so ridiculous, so expensive, it doesn't actually get you guests, but it gets you a lot of press coverage.
Yeah, and this is coming from a guy that is almost a professional guest of hotels. I like to travel. I like to go to places. And when I go to hotels, I want convenience. I want easy. I don't want to have to look for, a place that I can get my chocolate covered strawberries. I don't want to have to look for, the intimacy kit that should be in the room already at the minibar. I'm willing to pay a premium for those things, and anything that you can do to stand out. I think there are a lot of people like me that are going to pay that money for it.
Yeah, and you know what? How about this for an idea? I didn't see any of these packages, nor have I ever seen in my whole career. Why aren't you also providing the person booking the room with some sort of cards that they could do? I know, on Valentine's Day, the morning of the 14th every year, I'm over at the Walgreens, I'm over at the CVS, I'm over at the Duane Reade, and it's me and a lot of other guys hoping that there's still some cards left to buy. We're not very good at planning when it comes to these things, and it'd be great if you think about how you can make the gentleman's portion of it a lot easier. I find in this case women to be better planners than men when it comes to this.
You mean sending an e-card isn't acceptable for Valentine's Day?
I like that. I like that idea, but no, I don't think it's gonna work. I know I'm against Hallmark creating holidays, but unfortunately, our culture dictates you gotta have at least something like that. Now, for me, I'm gonna be celebrating Valentine's Day with my bride a couple of days earlier, and I'm sure it'll be a very special evening since we have almost 14-year-old twin boys.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that those guys and their band instruments and their computer games really set the romantic mood.
Yeah, if you want to create a hot night, just make sure your kids are playing Minecraft in front of you. Now that is sexy. All right, Jeff. Before we wrap up, anything else that you want to add?
No, I think, like I said, if you're like me and Glenn and don't like planning these things, I think going out and finding a package like this is a great way to make it easier on yourself. And if you're a hotelier and don't have something like this, I think it's a good way to attract guests like Glenn and like myself that we don't want to plan any of this stuff. We want to pay people to plan it for us.
Yeah, remember, our lives are so busy. They're so complicated. We have so much to do. Anything you can do as a hotelier to better connect with the guests by making their lives easier, the more opportunities you have in order to secure that premium pricing that will make you happy a lot longer than just for one night. Or in my case, happier than 8 seconds. Oh, boy.
Dirty mind.
All right. I want to thank you all for listening to this part. Jeff, thanks. It's been great to have you here on this segment. I always love when we do these lists. It's a lot of fun. You do great research, and thanks for putting that together.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I want you all to stick around because after this commercial break, we are going to be back with an amazing interview I did with Chris Elliott. If you're a consumer of hotels, it's going to be right up your alley. And if you're an owner, operator, career-minded hotel professional, this is an interview you absolutely must hear. It's all about what your customers are thinking, what's going right, what's going wrong when it comes to the hotel industry, and how you guys can make sure that you never wind up on his naughty list. And speaking of naughty lists, I hope you enjoyed that list for Valentine's Day. Thanks for listening, and we'll be right back after this message.
Have a question for your host, Glenn? Tweet him now at Traveling Glenn. No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast. We'll be right back.
From Eureka to San Diego and Malibu to Bakersfield, the California Lodging Investment Conference, CLIC, is one of a kind, focusing exclusively on our Golden States hotel market. CLIC was launched in 2016 by Craig Sullivan, a seasoned hospitality industry professional, to harness the knowledge of our industry leaders, support our community, and educate emerging talent. CLIC brings together lodging professionals from California and beyond for one day of learning, professional development, and networking. If you are an owner, operator, investor, broker, developer, lender, management company, brand, or professional services provider, you should plan on attending CLIC 2 on March 8, 2018 at the Hilton Irvine, Orange County Airport. We invite you to go check out the California Lodging Investment Conference website at cliconference.com for the latest details and sponsorship opportunities. Early registration now open. And as a listener of the No Vacancy with Glenn Hausman podcast, please make sure to use our exclusive discount code of No Vacancy when registering for this one-of-a-kind in California hospitality event that sold out in its very first year.
Back to the show. It's No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast with your host, Glenn Hausman.
You know, one of the things that we don't really talk about enough are the consumer side of the business. Sure, I talk about what they like, what they dislike, but who's out there on the consumer side? You know, you got to have people out there in order to protect the customer out there. And one of my favorite guys who's doing it around the country is Christopher Elliott. He runs Elliott.org, amongst a lot of other things that he does, which we're going to get into in this excellent conversation. Chris, how are you, sir?
I'm doing good.
You know, I'm excited to have you here today because I love reading your columns in USA Today. I love checking out Elliott.org to see what you're doing to help people. And it's one of those things that makes me happy to know that you're out there doing what's right by the consumer, protecting their interests, and making sure that we can enjoy the hospitality and travel experience.
Glenn, right back at you. You know, you've been one of my favorite sources for so long. Whenever I need an expert voice in the hotel industry, you're the guy I turn to. And you can pay me for that later on after the show. I accept PayPal.
Yeah, I might. I do too. And hey, guys, while we're at it, just donate to my Patreon page so I could pay Mr. Elliott over here because, hey, we all got to make a living. But that's really nice of you to say, Chris. I really appreciate that. And I love every single time you actually quote me in one of your articles. I feel like that kid in the candy store kind of a thing. I just like, wow, this guy is actually picking me. Whatever I have to say is relevant. But I think that's my constant state of being anyway. So thanks for that. But more importantly, I want to know about how you got involved in this. You seem to be the man with 1,000 different titles, not only working with USA Today, but I think you have a position with National Geographic Explorer magazine. You've got a family adventure travel site. You've even published books. I can't keep up with you, sir.
I forget who I'm writing for as well sometimes. There's so many places. I was very happy to be the ombudsman and reader advocate for National Geographic and National Geographic Traveler. I wrote a book for them for about 16 years, and Rupert Murdoch came in and bought them, and then that was the end of that.
Right.
But I was already off to the races, so you couldn't hold me back. I love doing what I do. You asked how I got into this.
Yeah.
I think I always had a rescue complex. And that's something you can get treated for now, but I have let it go untreated for so long. I don't know. I love helping people. I really do. And I think that's one of the reasons I got into journalism, is just so that I could make a difference and maybe make a positive change. So this was kind of a logical thing for me. And I started in as an editor for one of the trade publications for Travel Weekly back in the early 90s. Mm-hmm. And I saw that there were a lot of people advocating for the travel industry, but almost no one. In fact, back then it was really maybe only one person advocating for travelers. And so I felt myself being pulled in that direction. And, after many twists and turns, here I am.
That's pretty amazing. And I want to get a little bit more into this because you just gave us the quick story, but getting involved and actually helping people, I think, is pretty interesting and noble cause. And you've managed to create a whole business out of it, which is also fascinating to me because I kind of see myself as I never saw myself as a real journalist, so to speak, with the air quotes over there. I always saw myself as more of somebody's making observations about the business, who's making opinions about the business, who's there to educate, empower, and entertain, hopefully, is kind of what I see my role as. But you are actually doing real person stuff. You're helping folks. What drove you to want to be an advocate to people, and how did you actually get started in making sure that the customer is treated fairly by some of these mega organizations?
Well, okay, so I guess I started off right after journalism school, going to work for Dow Jones and writing for the Wall Street Journal. That was my first 2 years out of J school.
Wow.
And it was not a very good time to be working on Wall Street because no one was making money. This was the very early 90s. The markets were, I don't want to say they were in a free fall. They weren't doing very well, though. And my job was to sit in front of a terminal and watch the markets go down and write about it. I wrote a column called Abreast of the Market, and OTC Focus for small stocks, and then I wrote about IPOs for the ticker for Dow Jones News Service. And I knew that I had kind of the nomadic gypsy gene in me, so I loved travel. And one day I wrote a story about a cruise line going public. I talked to some people who covered the cruise industry, and I said, you know what, I need to get back out there on the road. This is what I really love to do. In fact, one of my favorite internships was with the Los Angeles Times. It was in their Northern California bureau. My first day on the job, they handed me the keys to the company car and a cell phone. And back in the late 80s, early 90s, the cell phones looked like big bricks.
I was about to say it's the size of the car. Yeah.
Huge. It was almost the size of the car. And so I go, ooh, wow. And every story I wrote went either on page 1 or page 3 of the newspaper. And I said, this is my dream job. I love being out there, talking to people, traveling. So I had this affinity for travel. And even growing up, I moved around a lot. So it was just something that I enjoyed doing. But working at Travel Weekly, being on the staff of a trade publication, I really could see the business side of things. And I knew that there was also a consumer side. And I became much more aware of the consumer side when I left and went freelance, and I started hearing from real travelers who said, hey, I'm having a problem here. I take that back. I actually heard from them while I was still at Travel Weekly. But increasingly, and this was about the time when the internet was starting to get really big. People were starting websites, and there was a sense of empowerment where before, people didn't have access to media. And now everyone had an email address. They could start a website or a blog. So it was really a great time to be getting into all this. And people started sending me their questions. It started with a question about, can I take my film through one of these scanners at the airport? And then it ended up, and I just started writing about it on my website and answering the question. Right. Then it became much more than that. It was more a question of, this airline's just charging me an extra fee, or they took my ticket and it was a non-refundable ticket and now I can't travel. I was charged an extra fee at a hotel. What can I do? And I ended up getting more involved in that. And that kind of morphed into or grew into a syndicated column. I started pitching newspaper editors. I said, look, I've got this thing. I'm doing it every week. Are you interested? And then that led to my gig at National Geographic too. But all along the way, this is something in the back of my head was saying, this is really what you got into journalism to do. I mean, yeah, it's nice to be traveling around and visiting places, but you really got into journalism to help people. So as things progressed, I became more certain that this was the career that I was meant to do.
Yeah, very fascinating. And the whole idea of helping people and using that so-called power of the pen in order to do good is such an interesting thing. And I think maybe the title of your next book maybe is The Accidental Advocate, because it doesn't seem like you purposely went down it. It's kind of like the world kind of sucked you into that kind of world. So how do you make this work? How do you convince these companies to do what you feel is the right thing to help the folks that come to you when they have no other options left for themselves?
I like to describe what I do as jujitsu. It's using the power of your opponent against your opponent. It's very passive, mild-mannered, non-confrontational. When someone asks me for help, they fill out a form on my website. And there's a reason for that. I need to be able to collect all the information, but I also need to see a paper trail. And the first thing that I do is I ask them to show me that paper trail. So the correspondence between them and the company, the hotel, the airline, whatever. And typically, people have not gone through all the channels that they need to get something resolved. If they have not done that, mm-hmm. I ask them to go ahead and write to the right person and ask them for a resolution. And if that happens, then there's no story because the problem. Yeah. And I would say that between 70 and 80% of our cases end up like that, where they just didn't go through the right, they didn't fill out the form on the hotel website to get a resolution, or they didn't say something. The best time to resolve something, of course, is in real time when you're at the hotel, and rather than waiting until the very end when you're all upset and you get home and you say, I'm going to write to the president. But if they've gone through all of their due diligence and they have a paper trail, then I'll review it, or a member of my team will have volunteers that I work with, and then we will forward it to our contact at the company. And this is done in an extremely non-confrontational way. We never say, how could you do this? Or fix this now.
Right. Instead,
we just say, we have a question from a reader. Could you please have a look at this and let me know if you have any questions? And 9 times out of 10, the person on the other end will have a look at it and say, oh, you know what? We missed something there. Let's fix this. And when they do that, then that's something that I will typically write about because it was resolved successfully. But not always. It's the criteria is the standards are a little higher for whether that gets turned into a story. It's got to have some real educational value. So if it's just, someone who made a mistake when they made a booking and then managed to get it fixed, that may not have a lot of educational value to it. But if it's something, for example, a resort fee that wasn't disclosed, we could probably do a whole separate podcast on resort fees.
Oh, I cannot stand resort fees. I think they are the bane of the hospitality existence. And I'm a huge hospitality cheerleader, but I just think that it's creates an antagonistic relationship with the customer. So I'm not surprised that people don't feel that sometimes that's disclosed appropriately.
Yeah. So let's just say that you have a case like that, and there is a bigger lesson for other readers, and it gets resolved. Well, then I probably will write up a Q&A for my syndicated column and say, and by the way, you might want to look out for these resort fees because they're out there and they're not always very well disclosed. And here's what happened to one of my readers, and here's how we fixed it, and here's how you can fix it too.
Right. And it seems that as far as resort fees goes, there still seems to be a steam gathering on Capitol Hill to actually do something about these resort fees because they're being considered, in a way, dishonest towards the consumer, and they're not really being disclosed in the way that's absolutely appropriate. Have you seen anything on that lately?
I've been following this issue for years, and the the Federal Trade Commission was about to act about a year and a half ago, and then
administrations changed.
Called the election, and changed everything. And now it's funny because I just talked to a reporter for one of the trade magazines, and all the action now is the subpoena against Marriott. They want the state attorney generals really want to know how much money companies are making with resort fees and how they're disclosing it, that kind of thing. And then based on that, I would expect some kind of court action and possibly an agreement with some of the major hotel chains. But the federal government dropped the ball, sadly, on resort fees.
Yeah, that's really a shame, because I think that the customer does need to be protected in this sense. And according to studies from, I believe, NYU and Bjorn Hansen over there, the industry is making $2 to $3 billion a year now in just added fees.
Yeah.
That's above and beyond just the resort fees, but fees in general, which is, I get it. It's fair. We all need to make a profit here, but I just feel like they're not doing it in the right way to take care of the customer, in the way that I hear these CEOs say they want to take care of the customer and respect the customer when I'm on stage with them at major hotel industry events.
Well, no, that's just a lie, unfortunately. And the hotel industry is lying to its customers when it quotes a rate that they then can't book. If you tell me that your hotel costs $159 a night, and then down the line, just before I hit the buy button, you add a mandatory resort fee, that's a lie. There's no two ways about it. And I've heard all the excuses too. I've heard, well, other industries do this, so why can't we? And my favorite, which is customers expect it. Well, great. Just because customers expect it doesn't make it right. Yeah. And this reminds me a lot of the argument against seatbelts, or that smoking doesn't kill you and that it's a personal choice and we should be allowed to smoke in restaurants. These are all arguments that sounded really good at the time, maybe, but in retrospect were really terrible ideas. And mandatory hotel resort fees are a terrible, terrible idea. And the worst thing about it is that now a lot of non-resort hotels are adding fees like this. It's just become a big money grab, and I don't know when it's going to end.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to end anytime soon, because people are still going there. You take a look at Las Vegas, for example. One major casino resort company had a whole ad campaign about how they're not going to do resort fees. And then they reversed themselves and said customers are demanding these fees because they don't want all of these individual services broken out on their own. Stuff that you really need when you're in a Las Vegas casino, such as a notary service, for example, right? Or local phone calls, because we all need those things in 2017.
Yeah. That kind of parsing is something you would expect from a politician, but we expect more from our resorts and our hotel industry, and I think that even if this isn't resolved at the legislative level or at the state level, maybe there's going to be a brave hotel chain that comes forward and says, we're just not going to do this anymore. This is lying,
right?
And we're going to not lie. And I'm really surprised that Marriott is not, because they have such a reputation for ethics and for doing the right thing and for being moral. And this is the last time I remember Marriott getting into this kind of trouble was when it was allowing adult movies in their rooms, and that was getting them into some hot water with the religious right. But this should be getting them into even more trouble, because it is lying. It's basically, not basically, it's telling a lie to its customers, and then it's making excuses for it. And that's just wrong. It's morally wrong.
Yeah, and I'm just offended when I stay at a place and the name of the hotel has the word resort in it. I think that I should be expected to have the features of a resort when I book that property, instead of being told I now have to spend $25, $30, even $40 or $50 a day extra to enjoy the facilities that they were theoretically selling me on to begin with.
Yeah, if it's not a mandatory fee, maybe that's okay.
Right.
If you want to go and enjoy the pool, and it's going to be an extra $40 a night to have access to the pool or the exercise facilities or the notary or whatever, fine. But don't tell me that the room is $159 and then add that $40 mandatory, whether I'm there for a conference and will never use the pool or not.
That's right.
That's just not right. You know, I think we can probably agree that we both believe in a free market, a free and minimally regulated or thoughtfully regulated market.
Right.
But this goes so against the principles of a free market. You do not lie to your consumer. You don't lie to your customer. That is wrong. And it is so anti-free market. This is profiting by deception, and there should be a law against it. I cannot believe that there's not a law against this.
Well, we'll see. Maybe there'll be another administration one day that'll change it. But I do want to be fair to the hotel companies as well, and I think we've made it clear that they do have a right to make money. They should just do it in a way that is, I think, honest and straightforward with the customers, so people know what they're getting themselves into. But as a consumer advocate, I suspect that you have instances where customers are a little bit crazy. Customers have this sense of expectation, a sense of entitlement sometimes, where they're asking for things that are inappropriate, such as I see frequently out there that people are offended that they have to pay a fee when they booked a room that was non-refundable, and then they decided that they're not going to honor that. So are you seeing a lot of things out there that the customers are doing that's also just not fair to the hospitality companies?
Yeah. Well, let me stay on this topic for just one more second.
Sure.
Because I think that you mentioned you want to be fair to the industry, and I think that there are efforts right now on some of the hotel websites to disclose resort fees a little bit better. For example, if you go to I was just on the Marriott site, and they say after you click in and you get a rate quote, they say there's a resort fee. And there was the question that was asked to me was, is that okay? Do you think that that's a more consumer friendly thing? And I love transparency and disclosure, and I think it's one of like the cornerstones of a free market is that you tell everyone everything that you possibly can. But and I would totally favor, if you're running a hotel and you want to tell me how much it costs for a resort fee and for cleaning the rooms and for insurance and for taking out the trash, go for it. You can put a menu of all of the costs right there next to my price, but don't lie to me about that price and tell me that the room is $40 cheaper than it actually is. You've got to say that at the very beginning when you quote the price. Right. And anything less than that is deception, and it's lying, and I think we're being fair to the hotel industry by saying it that way. You've been lying to your customers, and that's the only fair thing to say. Is it's fair to say that if you stop lying to your customers, we'll love you again.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And also, you say you like to approach things in a non-confrontational way. That's kind of my weakness, is I'm very non-confrontational, right? So I kind of almost see like by bringing this to attention with the hotel companies, maybe we're doing them a favor in the end, and they'll be able to actually be more profitable in the long term by having more open and honest dialogue with their customers when it comes to these things.
I think so too, and the airline industry had a similar discussion when the DOT came out with a fare rule that said that basically they had to quote a complete fare. And I remember privately in Congress, the airline lobbyists were saying that having to tell the truth about their fares would cost them millions of dollars a year, and so we shouldn't have this rule because it would affect the industry. And my reaction to that was, and I'm sure that, by the way, that the hotel industry has also said something like this. Look, if you take away our ability to quote a price minus a resort fee, we're going to lose millions of dollars because people will think their hotels are too expensive. But over the long term, I think that telling the truth about your rates is going to benefit you a whole lot more, because people will be able to budget better for their vacations and their conferences, and you're not going to get that surprise at the end where your bill costs 30 or 40% more than you thought it was going to cost you.
Yes.
So, but shifting though to answer your other question about
Sometimes you got those unreasonable folks out there. So how do you deal with those people? And I guess the place to see is, do you see this as a rising issue in society, or is it still something that just pops up from time to time as the exception?
Yeah. Well, people have referred to this as the entitlement generation, and I've seen a lot more people, actually of all ages, that believe that they deserve more than they actually do. You were mentioning refunds on non-refundable hotels. That happens a lot in the airline industry too, because nothing is refundable for when you fly. That's hard because if you think it's bad when you're a consumer advocate on the side of the industry, it's even worse when you're dealing when you're in a customer-facing position, because it would be easy to get the impression that I'm always going to side with the consumer. And so when you say, hey, you don't have a case here,
right,
the consumers often say, oh, what kind of an advocate are you anyway?
Well, yeah. Well, are you, then is it fair to say, are you a consumer advocate, or are you an advocate for what's right in the travel and hospitality business?
Yeah, if you go to my website, elliott.org, it's elliott.org, you will find my mission statement there. And I actually am an advocate for both sides being fair to each other and treating each other well. I call myself a consumer advocate because there are plenty of people who are industry lobbyists that are advocating just for the industry. There are not very many people who are doing what I'm doing.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, I do side with the consumer. So if all things being equal, I'm going to say, well, this was not right for the consumer. But I also don't want to throw a hotel or any other company under the bus just for a good story.
Yeah.
So I think that if a hotel, for example, says that a room is not refundable and a customer asks for a refund on a room, and there are no circumstances that would maybe make a hotel change its mind about a refund rule, then I may write a story from my blog that says, you asked for something that you're not entitled to. I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Right. But I've noticed in the case of hotels and non-refundable refunds that you seem to get for people, you seem to really appeal towards the decency of the hotel company on a human basis, not on a we made this agreement sort of basis. If there's some sort of extenuating circumstance, you seem to be able to get the brands to say, you know what, we're going to do this because we do care about our customers, even if our customer was not correct in this particular instance.
There are several ways that you can approach a situation where you're advocating for someone. One of them is on a legal basis. You can say, well, Arizona lodging law requires that you refund this, although state lodging laws protect the hotel industry. They don't have very much in there for consumers, unfortunately. The other argument you can make is on the basis of customer service. And there are some very powerful documents that are online available to anyone that will help you make your case. Corporate mission statements are great for that, because you can really hold a company's feet to the fire just by saying, your mission is great customer service all the time, anytime. We love our customers. And you can say, do you really love me? Because you're doing this to me. And you can actually cite chapter and verse of a corporate mission statement or a customer's first statement or something like that. And then you can also, as you mentioned before, cite the human decency thing. Look, both my parents died in a tragic car accident, and I had to cancel my vacation. Show a little decency and refund that non-refundable room. You don't have to do that, but in a circumstance like this, by the way, 99% of hotels will offer a refund for something like that.
Right.
But that's another way that you can argue your case.
Yeah, and I think that hotels will do that because they are decent human beings at the end of the day. And I really do think as part of this human experience, we're all in it together. And I love that you shine such a laser light focus on this to, even when people don't want to do the right things, you compel them to do the right things. That's why I like reading the Travel Troubleshooter. I had a little too much caffeine this morning, Chris. The nationally syndicated Q&A column that solves travel problems. Now, before we wrap up, you are a fascinating individual in the sense that you don't have a home like I do. I've been living in this same building now this house for 4 years now. You don't. You hop around the country. You've taken this RV tour all around the country right now. You're in Phoenix right now for a month. You're moving on to another city afterwards. We started off this conversation by saying you've got that travel bug in you. You like to do it. But what is it like having a family and traveling around the country with them constantly? Such a different way of life than the average American expects to go through.
Yeah. Well, I've been a travel writer for most of my career. So in addition to doing the advocacy, I also do the writing, destination writing. And I found that I was actually away from home more often than I was home. So at some point it made sense to just sell the house and spend most of my time on the road.
And check out awayishome.com, which is exactly what we're talking about here.
Right, exactly. Awayishome.com. And you're half right about the accommodations. I haven't stayed in an RV. I don't own an RV, but I stay in home rentals and in hotels. So I get to see a lot of hotels. And it's great because, as you mentioned before, maybe I said this, I kind of have the gypsy gene.
Yes.
And I really start getting stir crazy after being in one place for too long. I lived in the suburbs of Orlando for 12 years. And it was driving me crazy. So now I'm out. And, I have an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 15-year-old, and they seem to like it as much as I do. So we go out and explore, and I write stories about it.
That's a pretty awesome way to live your life and do it. So the kids just love seeing so much of the country. They must be really sophisticated and understand a lot of the way other people live, which I think is something that we're kind of missing here in society. So it must be very, I don't know if it was eye-opening for them or just the way it is. How do they see the lens of the world through the fact that they're traveling all the time? They're having so many great experiences.
Well, I grew up traveling as well. My father was kind of an itinerant minister, so we traveled through Europe and the United States. Wow. And so they're seeing the world the same way that I saw the world when I was growing up. I don't know any different way of seeing it. For me, what would be so alien to me is to stay in one place. So 12 years in one place was a very, very long time.
But at least you were near Epcot, so if you got anxious, you could just go around the world real quick.
And yeah, right. And also Orlando has a great airport. I think though that you mentioned that this was missing from a lot of people, and I think that the political situation that we're in right now, which is very regrettable, is due to people just not traveling. Travel is it builds bridges of understanding. It's the great equalizer. And I think if people traveled more, we wouldn't have some of the outrageous things that are happening in Washington and around the world right now, because those things happen because of people's ignorance, not because people are enlightened. And I wish that would change.
That's true, because you see that Sarah Silverman show that's on Hulu right now. It seems like she's very politically divided from the people that she speaks to on her show, but they're able to be unified because they understand at the end of the day we're all people, and once we get educated, we all get along better. Now, before we close out, Chris, what advice would you give the hotel industry executives out there that they could be more successful with appealing to customers going forward? Whatever it is, whatever you're thinking about based on your experience.
Wow, that's a tough question.
I know, I didn't plan it ahead of time, so I'm really screwing you here, Chris.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I think, one of the things that I would say is to tell the truth always to your customers. Don't lie, even if it benefits you in the short term. We're talking about resort fees. If you have a resort fee right now, I would get rid of it. Your customers will love you for it, and find some other way of making money. The other thing is that you make yourself available. Some of the best hotel general managers actually go on to places like TripAdvisor and answer reader questions. So be available to them. The worst GMs that I know never answer their own phones. Always go to voicemail, never return their calls, or have someone under them return their calls. The best GMs are out front, greeting guests, talking to them, and finding out what's going on in their own property. And fortunately for the hotel industry, there are more good GMs than bad GMs. And I think that sense of connectedness to your guest is missing in. And when you see that missing, you see the customer service scores going down because people have stopped listening to their customers. And, and the other thing, too, that I've noticed about hotels is that they're adding a lot of stuff to their rooms that people don't want, and they're taking away a lot of stuff that people do want. And I think, again, pay very close attention to those comment cards and talk to your guests, and you'll end up with rooms that people want instead of rooms that just look good in their photographs.
Any example of something that you think guests really crave that hotel brands aren't currently understanding? Hey, you set yourself up for this one.
Power outlets. Yeah. My goodness.
I can't believe after I've been in this business 20 years, I'm still complaining about this, Chris.
And no one has enough power outlets. I mean, for crying out loud, maybe even just an extension cord. Let them borrow an extension cord or something like that. But you manage to change the beds out, change the linens out, change the furniture, but you don't manage to put in any more power outlets. And if you could just fix that one thing, I think that would probably eliminate about 50% of the complaints that I get. Is not enough power, and the other is not enough light. Why are hotel rooms so cavernous and dimly lit? Why don't you just add a lamp? Or what are you afraid that people are going to see?
I feel the same. I feel exactly the same way. The other crusade I'm on right now, and yes, I called it a crusade, is to get light switches standardized on all the lamps and just make it so I could hit one switch and they either all go on or all go off when I'm leaving the room. They do it in Asia. They got it figured out. We can do it here too. Chris, you know what time it is now? It's time for shameless plugs. We got to visit Elliott.org. We've got to read the Travel Troubleshooter column, awayishome.com. What else do we need to know about?
Wow, I think you've covered it. If you are a regular reader of a local newspaper and you would love to see my column in it, and I know you would.
I would.
I can set you up with that. I would love for you to send a note to your editor to let them know that you want the Travel Troubleshooter. I also have a new column called Problem Solved for travel complaints that has just gone into syndication. My book is called How to Be the World's Smartest Traveler, and that's available from National Geographic. Elliott.org, you got that, ELLIOTT.org. I even help people in the hotel industry. So if you go to Elliott.org/help, fill out that form. I'll help you. Even if you work for a hotel, I'll help you out. And then awayishome.com is the travel site, and my personal website, chriselliots.com with an S at the end, 2 L's, 2 T's. Woo. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's a good thing that people can hit the back button on iTunes. Just go back 30 seconds, listen to that part of the show again. He's got so much stuff. Man, Chris, I loved having you on the show, and thanks for including me every once in a while on your columns. You make me feel special and loved, and I thank you very much for that.
That was fun. Okay, we'll do it again soon.
It was great. I want to thank everybody for listening. Make sure that you drop us a line at Traveling Glenn on Instagram, on Twitter, like our Facebook page. Please, No Vacancy Podcast. It's not that hard. Just hit that little button that says like, and you have done it. You've done me a favor. You've done my family a favor. My kids will thank you. I want to thank you all for listening, and I'll be back next week. That is, unless I just decide to pick up the whole family, throw them in an RV, and travel around the country. Be back next week. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much for listening to No Vacancy, the hospitality industry's #1 podcast, with your host, Glenn Hausman, online at rouse.media, on Twitter at Traveling Glenn, and on Facebook.com/Glenn.Hausman. We'll catch you next time.